of the things that when we looked at Sin City and said, all right, we're going to take this way beyond this, because up until that point, the two groundbreaking films that had been done digitally were Sin City and Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. And one of the big issues that I had visually with both of those films was they were so flat. Everything was right on the stage floor, and then they painted all the stuff in later. Now, in order to get real terrain, get a physical relationship between the actors, you had to create terrains. To create terrains, you had to figure out how that was going to marry to the backgrounds. So the way to design in 300 was to first of all design the overall, and then say, and here's where they are. So one of the things that I did the first week I was on 300 was I got all of Frank's pivotal images that showed the battle between the Persians and the Spartans at Thermopylae. And there are no wide shots. They're all real close. And I put them up on a wall, and I said, okay, now I have to create a geography that embraces all these images. I have to know where the cliff is, I have to know where the coastal road is, I have to know where the battleground is, where the Phocian Wall is, where Hell's Gate is, and I have to know where the place is where the archers fire the arrows that comes over and blots out the sun, and where, by the way, is the Persian encampment. So I created about 16 miles of coast, showed where the mountains were, why the coastal road came the way it did, how it funneled the Persians in, and where the battleground was and where the Spartans made their stand. And that's what Zack and I used as our location scout. When we would talk about a shot and he'd give me a thumbnail, I'd say, okay, well that could take place here, and this is what the background should be. It has to be cliffs, or it has to be the edge of this cliff that looks out on this peninsula. And so we had a real geography. It was like, of course it didn't bear any resemblance at all to the actual geography in Thermopylae and Greece, but it was our world that we created that made sense to the story we were telling. And that's how we did that. The same thing would happen with what if the actors are battling their way across, pushing the Persians toward the cliff. You know, what is the ground? What is the relationship? And we wanted real uneven terrains so that, you know, if there's a drainage that comes out of Hell's Gate in a little stream bed, there it is, and you can see it. And so what we did was we went through, and I created most of these set pieces, these small set pieces in SketchUp. And then we did midground and background, either computer designed or in paintings, so that when they shot, on set, there was a keyframe illustration that showed what that set was going to look like when it was finally rendered. And those renderings were also used to get bids from visual effects houses. What he wanted from the onset to fold the look of the graphic novel into the movie. But there were a lot of things that weren't particularly cinematic about the graphic novel. So what he would do is, for a scene, he would do a series of little thumbnails, then he would show one of Frank's drawings as sort of a keyframe, and this is where we're going to fold this in. So I knew by looking at his thumbnails where I was going to really have to try to capture the essence of one of Frank's frames. Frank hardly ever drew in 185. He always usually drew very vertical compositions, sometimes sort of square compositions, but very seldom in 185. So it was then a question of how to interpret it and how to sort of massage it and bring it into our format.